Entry complete. Like, comment, subscribe. The archive remembers. This video contains content that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello Anon. I'll warn you right away there will be no proofs, for reasons that will be described below. You can treat what I'm writing as a joke, not a very smart one, but still, try to take it seriously. Once I heard the phrase, "For every hunter, there is another hunter." Well, that's how it is. How I make my money doesn't matter. Let's say I work in banking, though that might just be an attempt to throw you off the trail. In the grand scheme of things, money only gives you opportunities, so it doesn't really matter how you earn it. I could just as well say I work in insurance or sales. I think every person should have a meaning in life, something to do that makes life worth living. One of the defining features of my hobby is anonymity. Right now, I'm writing this post using Tor and web proxies. Ahmad can confirm that. My hobby is hunting, but hunting animals isn't my thing. My prey is people. In Before Dexter Morgan, yeah, something like that. Though at first, I used to leave traces behind. Even now, I still do. You can't always hide the fact that a hunt took place. Let's say that among the lists of missing persons, unidentified bodies, victims of accidents, or seemingly unmotivated robberies, there's my modest contribution. Law enforcement doesn't disclose information about serial killings, so you'll have to guess how many people like me are walking around out there. Looking back, I understand that my actions and thoughts are not normal. I feel no remorse. I remember the thrill and the tension of the hunt. That's probably why I did it. Well, that and childhood trauma, of course. But I won't bore you with stories about my happy life. Ideally by now you feel disgust toward me. In that case, the news that I probably don't have much time left myself will make you happy. It takes one to recognize one. When you step outside knowing that somewhere out there your prey is walking, and that at a certain place in time your paths will cross, your perception of the world changes. At one point it was a surprising discovery for me, just how inattentive people are to those around them. Once, I passed through a crowd with my hands smeared in blood. No one noticed. As you can imagine, there will be no details, even now. I'm acting under the assumption that everything might still end well for me. People don't want to see what frightens them. When they ask you whether you're holding a knife, and you answer that no, it's not a knife, they will cling to that answer to the very end, trying not to notice the obvious. Once I started hunting, I began noticing small details in people that I'd never paid attention to before. A bonus of this hobby was a deeper understanding of those around me, and sharpened observation. And it was this bonus that brought me to this point. An entirely ordinary event resulted in me locking myself inside my fortress, planning what might be my final move. A simple encounter on the street, that alone can change your life. I am a bad person, but let this be a reason to listen to my words. I warn you, far more terrifying creatures exist alongside us than serial killers. Even if this story seems implausible to you, stay alert and keep your emotions in check if you ever come across something like this. As I said, during a completely ordinary walk, I encountered a strange man. Most people don't even realize they're evaluating those they pass. They don't notice them at all. Try to recall the face of the person who just walked past you. Can you? What about 30 seconds later? I notice everything. This one was different. It wasn't a crowded street, and only I noticed how some ragged vagrant gripped an absurd crutch as if it were a weapon. People walked past, but I noticed, and the crutch didn't look like any orthopedic aid. I've never seen a crutch with a sharpened, double-edged handle. The man was of indeterminate age, looking like a thoroughly worn-out bum, matted hair, filthy, a wrinkled face, and a patch of adhesive tape where his nose should have been. A whole slap of it covering half his face. He caught my eye and stared back with unexpected malice. Naturally, my other business could wait. Normally, I plan a hunt carefully. Gather information about the prey, the places where he or she appears. You should hunt only those who are interesting to hunt. Smashing the skull of some clerk from the neighboring department with a hammer after running into him drunk in a stairwell late Friday night? That's boring. Finding someone worthy of your attention, that's what truly brings pleasure. And this bum seemed interesting. At first, tailing him was easy, a crowded Saturday street, the target moving slowly and not using any transport. Then my target wandered into a part of the city with low-rise buildings, old private houses. I kept my distance. There was no way he could have noticed me. That's how he went into that house. Even now, I won't name the city where this happened, let alone the exact locations, just in case. I started watching the house. Before my acquaintance came back out, I counted 2 more equally disgusting bums entering that address. Over the next few days, it became clear there were at least 5 of them living there. Other vagrants would come and go as well. Unfortunately, I have to admit that this was the moment where I screwed up. I didn't keep track of how many of them left. It's funny but true. I relaxed too much, and that's the first cause of failure. Though what guarantee is there that even if I'd backed off then, I could have changed anything? In general, everything remained fairly ordinary up until the moment I got on the tail of my tape-nosed prey as he headed out for an evening walk. A late winter evening, a strange and repulsive trophy. The perfect time for a hunt. I armed myself with a broken bottle, shaped into a shiv. Given the nature of the target, no one would have been interested in a bum found with his throat cut by shattered glass. That's usually how it goes, anon. A company director gets sent on an urgent vacation to distant lands, after which an audit conveniently uncovers his embezzlement. That hunt gave me far more pleasure than dealing with some random lumpen. While choosing the right moment, I noticed that my bum was behaving oddly. Surprisingly, he himself was following someone, as if he were hunting them. That made me insanely curious about what he planned to do. An angry bum is a so-so prey. A robber bum is much more interesting. The hunt ended near one of the empty apartment blocks. The man my ragged target was following turned the corner, my ward went after him, and when I entered the courtyard, both of them were gone. Go into the entrance? Would you let some filthy, unknown lumpen follow you inside? There were no sounds of a struggle or shouting. Then I noticed traces, characteristic dark spots, forming a trail that led to the basement entrance, which was open, even though they're usually locked. I pulled out a flashlight. The spots were red. I didn't go down into the basement, simply because, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement deeper in the courtyard. I switched off the flashlight, focused, and spotted another lumpen, who had previously been standing motionless and had now begun to move. Obviously, he'd seen the flashlight beam. Off to the side, there was yet another figure. I always hunt alone, so I don't set up group ambushes, though I often think about them, just in case law enforcement ever takes an interest in me. The bums had covered all the exits from the courtyard and were positioned far enough from the building entrances to intercept anyone coming out. Looking back now, I'd rate that courtyard as a very well-designed trap, one that's extremely difficult to escape. A phantasmagorical sight, a serial killer caught in a trap set by bums. Back then, though, I thought they were just into robberies. Getting into a fight that would inevitably make noise, and, if a body were left behind, potential evidence that could expose me, wasn't appealing. So I turned around and got the hell out of that welcoming little courtyard. What really surprised me was that a few blocks later I noticed one of the bums riding my tail. Let's just say I was very pissed off by the whole situation, and decided that at least one of them wasn't going to survive the night. I tried to lure him into a trap, a quiet spot where I could ambush my escort, kill him quickly, and disappear unnoticed. I've spent a lot of time studying the city, so I've got a few homebrewed setups prepared for different situations. But the bum wasn't in a hurry to walk past the kindergarten fence, behind whose gazebo I was hiding, and when one of his colleagues appeared from the other side of the kindergarten, I damn near shat a couple buckets of bricks. Some ragged nobodies were hunting me on my own turf. The place was secluded enough to finish at least one of them off, but random passers-by ruined the plan. In the end, I shook them off, grabbed a taxi, got to the parking lot where I'd left my car, and drove home. Finding truly interesting prey whose capabilities genuinely surprised me felt like luck. Where you'd see penniless vagrants, I saw my own kind, hunters of urban game, thinking several moves ahead, more than worthy trophies. But trying to take down 2 people armed with nothing more than a broken bottle, a knife, a screwdriver, and a coil of wire would have been reckless. For my next watch near the lumpen's house, I brought a night vision scope and a converted gas pistol I'd bought on the side from a former classmate, who's now in crime. I spent quite a bit of time rigging something resembling a suppressor for it, so now the piece claps when fired, not silent, but quieter than it used to be. I'd never needed it before, but the situation had changed. During the day, my acquaintances didn't show themselves, neither entering nor leaving the house. When night fell, none of the windows were lit, and I decided to pay my new friends a visit. It wasn't a particularly wise decision, but aside from anger, I was also curious about who I'd run into. I was just about to get out of the car when I spotted movement through the night scope. A pair of ragged figures, one of them my first acquaintance, the taped nose, were dragging some duffel bags down the street. They went into the house's courtyard, but the lights inside still didn't come on. As they walked, I watched them through the night vision. My acquaintance hadn't changed. The same ugly hat with some kind of tangled tuft sticking out from under it, the same half-face patch of medical tape slapped across his nose. I couldn't see the second one's face. He'd wrapped it in a scarf so that only his eyes and a strip of forehead were visible. A sight to behold. The prospect of killing them with my bare hands was repulsively enticing. I really didn't want to catch something from these creatures. The bums dragged the duffel bags into the courtyard. I gave them 15 minutes, then went to pay them a visit. Even now, the hair on the back of my neck stands on end. But back then, there was a cold confidence in my abilities. I've come to take your lives. Like I said, carelessness is what kills you. I hopped the fence and looked around. The front door of the house was locked, but the crawlway to the basement was open. The night vision scope turned out to be a very worthwhile purchase. I don't skimp on my hobbies. I caught the smell already on the stairs, the stench of coagulated blood and rotting meat. Night vision in one hand, pistol in the other, I went down the steep steps into the basement, ready to fire. The basement was large. Inside were bodies, what was left of them, bones, scraps of clothing, chunks of flesh. And believe me, these weren't animals, though people can be considered animals too. And one of them was there. In night vision, human pupils shine. The open iris lets the infrared illumination reflect off the back of the eye. His pupils shined as well. His face was smeared with something dark, as it appears in night vision, but what he was holding in his hands made it clear what his face was smeared with, and what he'd just been doing. He jerked toward me. You can call it self-defense. Now I think it was my acquaintance's partner, judging by his clothes. His face had previously been hidden by the scarf, an unnaturally wide mouth, sharp uneven teeth. That's how we'll remember him. You and I. Because now you know about them too. I ran. The suppressor was still too loud, and the prospect of a slaughter with a gang of cannibals didn't appeal to me. To be honest, anon, I was scared. In my second life, I've dealt with many manifestations of human inhumanity. I've witnessed and taken part in savage scenes. But here there was something else. Something that made me sprint for the car and slam the gas when the first creatures burst out of the house. I decided to leave them alone. Unlike most people, who can't bring themselves to make a decision, I don't have that problem. An ordinary person will agonize until they return to the scene of their crime or do some other stupid thing, and that's how they get caught. So I rejected the fantasy of coming back armed to the teeth and staging a holocaust for the bums. Let them live, as long as they don't interfere with me. The day before yesterday, one of them was standing near my car. I park it in a lot not far from my building. On top of that, my personal safety concerns me greatly, so if the lock on my door ever breaks, you'd have to literally saw it open for 3 hours. I've installed cameras in the stairwell, and a couple more cover the courtyard and the parking lot. I try not to live by a schedule. Victims live by schedules, not hunters. So I got up earlier than usual and accidentally noticed a figure on the monitor screen. Then he stepped aside and left the camera's field of view. From the window, I saw where he'd taken up an observation position. He was watching my car. I went to work by taxi. In the evening, the bum was no longer there. They appeared on the stairwell camera about 30 minutes after I got home. Most likely, they'd spread out around the neighborhood and were waiting. Either way, they were very good. Finding a person they'd seen only for a few seconds, knowing nothing but the license plate number of a car I drive by proxy, so to speak. They lingered at the door briefly, then left faster than I could decide whether to step out and shoot them with a shotgun. I really didn't like the situation. Considering what they do, and the fact that they know where I live, The prospect of being attacked by cannibal bums looked real and phantasmagorical at the same time. Yesterday I decided to get clever and leave through a different entrance of the apartment block where I live. Roughly speaking, the building is shaped like the letter L. In one of the entrances on the neighboring leg of the L, some unknown vandal had cut the hinges off the elevator and rooftop doors, so they no longer lock. Originally, I'd planned this route in case I ever needed to evade the police, but it turned out useful sooner. There were no bums visible in the stairwell, so I left my apartment and went up, unlocked the rooftop door with my own copy of the key. I'm lucky. I don't know whether I was born under a lucky star or if there's some other explanation, but probabilities tend to work in my favor more often than probability theory would allow. I had a knife on my belt. I opened the door with my left hand, my right was already on the grip. Now I can say this with certainty. They are not people. People do not move that fast. One of them appeared suddenly. He had a piece of rebar or something like that. He lunged from the left. One moment, nothing. The next, a dark shape swung at me. I grabbed him, and on the third beat, I drove the knife into his chest. He knocked me to the ground. I grabbed onto him and stabbed with my free hand. I haven't gotten this messy in a very long time. Standing on the roof of my own building, covered in blood, with a knife in my hand and a corpse at my feet, things keep getting more interesting. In the end, I dragged the body down to my apartment, put it in the bathtub, and locked myself in. The bums checked the stairwell several times, and I'm afraid to go outside. I saw it in my bathtub. I cut it open. It looks like a human, but it is not human. I know anatomy well, for obvious practical reasons. Many organs are the same. Some are deformed, as if by disease or a congenital defect. Some I had never seen before. The liver is enlarged, dark inside, with no fatty tissue. The gallbladder is deformed, with another organ fused to it, apparently some kind of gland. The teeth are sharp, no molars. It is adapted to eating meat. The brain is well developed. The joints are thickened. The muscle tissue is extremely dense. It cuts badly. Wherever they came from, these are not people. Whether they're the result of evolution, altered humans, monsters living among us and mimicking society, or creations of dark forces I don't believe in, it makes no difference. The reasons don't interest me. What interests me is here and now. And right now, I'm working out a plan for tomorrow. I'm not going to sit in my fortress like a cornered animal. Obviously, if I succeed, I'll have to leave. Where and how are technical details you don't need to know. I still allow for the possibility that I'll come out of this game the winner. At dawn, I'll start acting. Sitting in one apartment with slowly starting to reek meat isn't for me. In any case, you need to know this. You don't have to believe me. You can consider this a fake. Just keep in mind that something other than humans may be nearby. Be more attentive. And don't give yourself away if you ever recognize them.